guys, another interesting and important theme to look out for is leadership. I'm going to be doing 2 podcasts on leadership, one about benevolent leadership and one about malevolent leadership. So in the Crucible, good leadership is shown through, for me, in my opinion, mainly Proctor and Rebecca Nurse. Proctor realizes that he has to die in order to weaken the court's authority, and that's kind of, the ultimate gesture against the tyranny of the court. He attempts to override the common vengeance that writes the law and refuses to sign a written statement knowing that, it could be used to support the court's past and future actions. He has this line, "Is the accuser always wholly now?" which is used to contradict Danforth's line that goes, "Therefore we must rely upon the confessions of a witch's victims." There's this great quote by C.W.E. Bigsby that goes, "The power of authority ultimately derives from the individual's willing acquiescence in the idea of his own insignificance." And I think it's a really, really great one, and it's really powerful for Proctor and the way that he is ultimately a good leader, as he, his martyrdom really enforces the fact that liberty and truth and freedom is fundamental to being able to live happily. Following, Rebecca Nurse is also a really interesting character to talk about. I don't think it's as easy to talk about Rebecca Nurse as it is Proctor, obviously, because he's the main character. But I do think I have compiled a fair amount of quotes and content here for you to be able to talk about Rebecca, who is arguably a minor character with some degree of confidence. I think it's good to talk about her because she doesn't have as much, time on stage. So it's great to just show that you've really read the text and you really know what's happening in it. So Rebecca is a highly regarded character with, quote, "one foot in heaven," and she is used to indicate the criminal absurdity of Salem's witchcraft proceedings. Her refusal to acquiesce to the hysteria and suspicion when she says, "We ought to rely on the doctor now and good prayer," ultimately results in her execution. She frequently takes a moderate and rational approach to the accusations of witchcraft. She calls upon the authority to consider the silly season, which is a quote, of the children, and warning that there is prodigious danger in the seeking of loose spirits. Miller establishes her as a rebuke to the madness of others and also a goal towards which Proctor may aspire for his goodness. Her refusal to comply with the court and their directives makes her a victim of the state's tyranny. And unlike Proctor, at no point does she prevaricate or vacillate. And through that, I think her death is a clear condemnation of the witch hunts, and her martyrdom robs the process of any moral validity. I don't have this one written down, but I do remember that there's a quote that Hale says something about Rebecca. It would be good if you could find it. It goes something about, if Rebecca is accused, then there's nothing to stop the whole green world from burning. So just to reiterate, that is, Hale is pointing out that, if she's guilty, if she is accused, then kind of like no one's safe because she's such an upstanding citizen of Salem. As well, in Year of Wonders, I usually cite Montpellier for good leadership in this, and how he actively criticizes extreme religion that justifies fear and prejudice. He's quite critical of that. We've already said that, he's warning people not to fall into superstitions, implying that it is the town's ugly thoughts and evil doubting of one another. It's diabolical, not the unfounded suspicions that they have. Those quotes are just really good ones to be able to recycle through your paragraphs because for me, I know he was a character who cropped up a lot in the essays that I was writing in Year 12. I would go back to that and how he's able to unite his community so that they all partook of going to church. And, his sermons give the sense of structure and purpose. And he has the power to hold us one by one in his gaze. So he's really able to coalesce that community. As well as Montpellier, Anna and Eleanor demonstrate unexpected leadership as they challenge the cultural zeitgeist and expectations of women by putting the needs of the community above their own lives. Mary Wickford, who's a Quaker and representative of the disenfranchised groups of society, Anna and Eleanor are able to come to her aid, and she would have lost her last assets and be confined to poverty if Anna and Eleanor did not help her retrieve gold from the mine. So those are just quick examples from the Crucible and Year of Wonders of what benevolent leadership looks like. It is a lot easier to talk about malevolent leadership, especially in the Crucible, and so these are just some good balances to, if you're ever asked to talk about leadership, it is good to have some here's examples of good leadership, here's some examples of quite harmful and destructive leadership. So I do hope that you have a little bit better of an understanding of what benevolent leadership looks like in the Crucible and Year of Wonders, and I will see you in a sec in malevolent leadership.